If she hasn't had the children herself, or Harry hadn't been involved, then they can't be in the royal line. You know, they have to have royal blood, those little ones, and without that, there's no chance of them becoming a member of the royal family.
This case about whether you think the birth was real, whether you think there was a surrogate, whether you think Meghan was wearing a moon bump, the fact is Harry and Meghan lied. Buckingham Palace lied on their behalf. There was a complete cover-up over the birth of
Princess Lilibet Diana had been christened. Why would they use a title for their children that represents an institution they loathe so much?
What if everything people thought they knew about Prince Harry's private life suddenly got flipped upside down? New claims are starting to surface, and now everyone's asking what's really going on behind the scenes with Archie and Lilibet. Angela Levin has stepped forward with details that are grabbing serious attention, and now people are connecting dots that didn't quite add up before. Sources are buzzing about how Harry is handling the pressure, with some saying the situation has him feeling tense as unexpected questions keep piling up. From surprising revelations to growing public curiosity, this story is getting harder to ignore by the minute. So what is this really about? Are these just rumors spinning out of control, or is something bigger slowly coming to light? The online conversation is heating up fast, with people debating what all of this could mean for Harry, Meghan, and their family moving forward. Right now, the details being discussed are turning heads and raising eyebrows in a major way. When Angela Levin appeared on that morning show, it seemed like just another routine segment at first, but something felt different right away. She looked calm and composed like always, but there was a certain energy in the room, like she came prepared to shake things up. If you know Angela Levin, you already know she doesn't hold back. She's not the type to stay quiet just to keep things comfortable.
The first thing is that these children are being raised in some type of freak show. You know, it's like they are Michael Jackson's children who were paraded to the world but covered up in masks. Yeah, but then remember, he covered their identities and their faces in masks. You know, so of course they're very likely to be messed up, growing up with such messed up parents who are using them in such a mucked up manner. So that's the first thing I would say. The second thing I would say on the titles is that I think what Prince William is acutely aware of, and this has certainly been my reporting, is that look at what happened when you allowed to run rampant for so many years, chasing the cash. Harry and Meghan Markle's surrogacy scandal has entered the mainstream media domain.
And she doesn't soften her words just to avoid reactions. She asks the questions others avoid and points out things people hesitate to say out loud. And that's exactly why people pay attention to her. So when she started talking about Prince Harry, it didn't feel like the usual light conversation. She skipped past the surface-level topics and went straight into areas that have stayed low profile for years, especially when it comes to Archie and Lilibet. You could feel the tension shift almost instantly. Viewers at home probably weren't home expecting that kind of turn either. What started as a normal morning segment suddenly felt intense, like something serious was unfolding in real time. The mood changed fast, and suddenly nobody was just casually watching anymore. People were locked in, eyes on the screen, fully focused on what was being said. Phones stopped scrolling, conversations paused, because this didn't sound like typical royal talk at all. This wasn't about fashion or casual appearances. This was about deeper questions tied to royal rules, traditions, and long-standing expectations that go back generations. And the way she said it made it hit even harder. Angela stayed calm the entire time, almost like it was just a regular conversation.
And if she wants to do anything politically in America, which is on and off with her, isn't it? She can't do it with the title. So what's she worried about? Just drop out, but she won't, because she's so determined to get her own back. And that it needs someone strong like William who's going to absolutely push it through.
I absolutely agree.
Things were dealt with a bit more, you could call it aggressively, when it came to errant members of a royal family. You sent them off to war and hoped that war took care of the rest, sort of thing. And so I think in this sort of modern era, you do actually need some way to, discipline may sound like a harsh word, but to share with them, hey, you're part of this. You have to be a situation like Harry, because Harry and Meghan left in part because they thought they could just do whatever the heck they wanted. Nobody was going to tell them no.
But every point landed with weight. No dramatic tone, no raised voice, just direct statements that made people stop and really think. Within minutes, everything started blowing up online. Clips spread quickly, reactions poured in, and people everywhere began analyzing every detail, trying to understand what it all could mean. Everyone watching had the same reaction. Did she really just say that? It felt like one of those moments you replay in your head because you're not even sure you heard it right the first time. Even the host sitting next to her looked slightly caught off guard, shifting in their seat like this wasn't how things were expected to go. But Angela Levin didn't pause or hesitate. She stayed steady and continued, like she knew exactly where she was going with it. And that's when things got even more interesting. She pointed out something most people never stop to think about: how royal births are usually handled. For generations, there's been a clear structure: official announcements, confirmations from medical professionals, public appearances, and carefully shared details. It's all part of a long-standing tradition, connected to royal protocol and transparency. But when it came to Archie and Lilibet, she suggested that things didn't follow that same pattern.
This crisis won't die down until the irrefutable truth comes out.
Harry and Meghan playing games that resulted in people unnecessarily questioning things. Again, every toxicity thing is result of them.
A lot of the royal watchers were complaining that they felt like her posts on social media where she barely shows the kids is almost taunting the king, who doesn't know these children, and how unfair this is.
As she started explaining what was different, it became harder for people to ignore. No photos outside hospital doors like people are used to seeing. No detailed medical statements or full breakdown of the birth process, and none of the usual formal updates that typically come with a royal arrival. Traditionally, everything is shared in a very structured and public way. The location, the timing, the professionals involved, it's all documented because of how important royal lineage and transparency have always been. But in this case, things were handled much more privately. Harry and Meghan chose to keep most details limited. And that's when people began noticing small things that didn't seem fully clear. Some timelines appeared unclear. Certain details seemed to vary depending on the source. And a few images sparked discussions online. On their own, these details might not seem major, but when people started putting everything together, it stood out more. Royal watchers began comparing these births to others in recent years, and while past royal arrivals followed a consistent public pattern, this situation looked like a clear shift from that long-established approach. Angela Levin made her point very directly. She highlighted that based on what has been publicly shared, far fewer official details were released compared to previous royal births. Usually, there are multiple confirmations, structured updates, and clear documentation. But this time, everything appeared more limited and private, and that's when the questions really started growing. People began asking why this approach was so different.
And Meghan just thinks she's too wonderful to be left out of it, and she will win because she'll go to court if she doesn't keeps her title. I don't know, it's very hard. It's very hard to lose your title, but I do really hope that it's taken away. I mean, she's complained for over 6 years now what a terrible time she had. She was nearly wanted to kill herself. She didn't want to live. Then what trying to get back in there somewhere. Nobody wants her. She's not going to listen to anything she's been told. So you can't really put them into the Buckingham Palace and say, look, if you feel like doing any work, do it. And if you don't, because that's not going to be a way that Harry doesn't mind that, which is extraordinary, but it's not a way to do that. And I think if they're going to school and you leave them there with a title, Prince and Princess, they're going to get bullied.
Why step away from traditions that had been followed so closely for so long? And just like that, what started as a simple morning show conversation turned into something much bigger, with more people paying attention than ever before. These weren't small changes at all. They felt like major shifts to a system people always believed was locked in place. And Angela Levin didn't keep things vague either. She went point by point, highlighting what seemed to be missing. The more she explained, the more people leaned in and started paying serious attention. First, she focused on the birth announcements, and that's where things really started catching people's eyes. Normally, official statements include every key detail: location, time, weight, all clearly laid out in a structured way. It's a process that's been followed for years without much variation. But when it came to Archie, things didn't follow that same pattern. The announcement came later than expected, and several of those standard details weren't included. That alone had people asking, Why did this feel so different?
She was never pregnant at all. Instead, the videos emboldened conspiracy theorists. They're calling it Megspiracy, and the pair are being subjected to yet more merciless ridicule.
That it just really kind of boggles the mind. I mean, just for titles, for example. So when Archie was first born, they said they didn't want him to have a title. He was going to be a private citizen. I was like, bravo, you understand. He's not going to be a working member of the royal family. He is going to have to live a normal life, get a normal job. That is fantastic. And then it came out later in the Oprah Winfrey interview. Well, they denied him a title and security because he is a mixed race child. And then it was kind of like.
Then came the timing. And this is where even more questions started building. Typically, the public is informed when a royal is admitted ahead of the birth, with updates following shortly after. But here, the news came after everything had already taken place, shared on a timeline that felt much more controlled and private. And it didn't stop there. Questions began popping up about the location, with different reports pointing to different places, but no clear confirmation to settle it. That kind of uncertainty isn't something people are used to when it comes to royal events. Even the timeline itself raised eyebrows. When people started comparing the details that were shared with how long certain journeys usually take, some began wondering if everything aligned as expected. And once that thought enters the conversation, it only adds more curiosity. It started to feel like one of those situations where the timing just doesn't fully match up. And when that happens, people naturally begin asking what might be missing. Then came the photos, and this added another layer to the conversation. Some images from Meghan's pregnancy caught attention because a few viewers felt certain things looked slightly unusual. Nothing confirmed, nothing official, but longtime royal watchers noticed differences compared to what they had seen before. And when photos of Archie were finally released, they were limited and very carefully selected. That stood out too.
Fascinating reporting coming from News Nation, the US news channel, and its head of entertainment, Paula Frolic, who reveals Prince William to change the monarchy forever.
With either Archie or Lily, and it needs to happen. They need to prove that those children, Meghan and Harry, are not entitled to privacy in this matter. And their privacy is trumped by our right to know that no bastard is going to sit on the throne of this country.
Especially since people are used to more open, traditional photo moments when royal babies are introduced. But what really kept the conversation going was the lack of follow-up. Normally, when questions begin circulating, official clarifications are shared fairly quickly to clear things up. But this time, there wasn't much additional information released, and that silence left people guessing. So of course, the internet stepped in. People started analyzing timelines, revisiting earlier statements, and connecting every small detail they could find. Some believed there were simple explanations, like a desire for more privacy, which is completely understandable, but others began exploring more complex ideas, trying to explain why everything felt so tightly controlled. Online discussions quickly grew, comment sections turned into full debates, and people everywhere were trying to piece everything together. No matter what side people were on, it all came back to one thing. There were gaps, missing details, unclear timelines, and unanswered questions that kept standing out. And once those gaps are noticed, they're hard to ignore. As Angela Levin continued highlighting what seemed to be missing, more viewers went back and re-examined everything with fresh eyes. And for many, it didn't match what they had seen with other royal births in the past. So then the big question became, how did Prince Harry respond to all of this? Reports started suggesting that he was under serious pressure as the story spread quickly.
Duchess of Sussex, no longer HRH, was safely delivered of a son, and she and her child are both doing well. So back to the tradition of putting out a framed bulletin or a gilded easel outside Buckingham Palace after royal births has been going on since 1837, so it's a cool tradition. And George, Charlotte, and Louis' easels listed the doctors' names with signatures, birth weight and time, and referenced the royal family.
Well, Harry and Meghan have never provided any evidence for that highly incendiary claim. It's not like they haven't had the chance to. After all, they pumped out 6 hours of self-indulgent builds on Netflix, trashing Britain and the press for its racism.
Instead of addressing every question publicly, it appeared the focus shifted toward handling things behind the scenes while the conversation kept growing. Soon, reports described rising tension, phones ringing nonstop, urgent meetings happening, and people trying to keep up with how fast everything was unfolding. It created the impression that things were moving all at once, fast and intense, and when reactions seem that strong, it naturally leads people to ask more questions. If everything is straightforward, why not address it calmly and move forward? That's what many observers began wondering. What stood out even more was how different this response felt compared to the past. Prince Harry has always been seen as someone who can handle pressure, especially after years of constant media attention. But this time, the reaction appeared more tense, and that caught people off guard. The reaction itself quickly became part of the story. Social media filled up fast with commentary, reactions, and debates about what was really happening. Even people who usually supported him started questioning why everything felt so intense. Before long, the focus shifted completely. It wasn't just about what was said during that broadcast anymore. It was about how everything was being handled afterward. And that shift only made the situation grow even bigger. Some reports described him as overwhelmed, saying he was personally making calls and trying to manage how everything was being discussed.
As a result of the bizarre conduct of a cheap hustler and her dope of a husband, is entirely unnecessary and should be cleared up. There is no justifiable reason why the British public should have to put up with a doubtful situation when it has been generally accepted practice since 1688 that all royal births should be publicly attested so that there can be no question as to the entitlement of an infant to his or her place in the line of succession.
Meghan's Netflix series, released to the world this morning, is packed with, well, not really revelations, are they? It's sort of rehashed old revelations with a new twist. As it turns out, we've apparently been wrong all along. Britain is a nasty, racist hellhole where only magnificent Meghan stood up to all this and the world's biggest victim.
Others claimed the situation started to feel more chaotic. The more responses were attempted, which only added to the pressure building around him. People close to the situation were said to be trying to bring structure and calm things down. But from the outside, it didn't seem easy to slow the momentum. And that kind of reaction only made people more curious. It all comes down to perception. When someone reacts strongly to questions, people naturally start wondering what's behind it. And the contrast here stood out clearly. On one side, Angela Levin appeared calm and steady, simply sharing her perspective. While on the other side, the response seemed far more intense. Online reactions didn't hold back either. Many questioned why things seemed so heated, while others debated what it could all mean. Even longtime supporters found themselves unsure as the situation kept growing into something much bigger than expected. Late-night shows in the US started making jokes about it. British tabloids picked it up quickly, and online commentators began breaking down every reported detail. What could have been a simple clarification turned into a full spotlight moment, with Prince Harry right at the center of it. But at the same time, something else stood out, and people noticed it fast. Meghan remained completely silent.
They decide, okay, well, we have to come out and show the baby in some way, but we're not coming out to the street. The filthy masses are not going to have anything to do with our kid. So then they show up, and there's Meghan in her white dress with Harry, and he's holding this completely still baby.
Yeah, nobody set out to destroy you. You destroyed yourselves in this country with your ludicrous, hypocritical behaviour. The truth be told, what she just said is complete and utter garbage by the British media, the public and the royal family that they've all now abandoned. That's the truth.
No public statements, no appearances, no updates, nothing at all. For someone known for being very intentional about public image, that silence caught a lot of attention. Harry and Meghan have always presented themselves as a united front, carefully aligned in what they share publicly. But this time, that dynamic seemed different. While reports suggested Harry was actively trying to manage the situation, Meghan stayed entirely out of view, and that contrast didn't go unnoticed. Observers started pointing out how unusual it felt to see one side highly visible under pressure, while the other remained completely quiet. It added another layer to the story, leaving people wondering what might really be happening behind the scenes. Social media picked up on it almost instantly. It didn't take long before "Where's Meghan" started trending, with users everywhere asking the same questions. Why wasn't she speaking up? Why wasn't she standing beside Harry during all of this? The silence became its own headline. Posts flooded timelines, some showing Harry looking stressed, others joking about him handling everything alone, while Meghan stayed completely off the radar. Opinions quickly split. Some people believed staying quiet was the smart move, keeping a low profile and avoiding adding more attention. From that perspective, it looked like a strategic decision, but others saw it differently.
They're legally covering their backs. There's just too many unknowns. And then, of course, we have that the doctor that allegedly delivered Lily quit her practice 2 weeks after giving birth to Lily or delivering Lily. That sentence there is missing.
California Birth Index, and per the website at the CaliforniaBirthIndex.org, the California Birth Index, or CABI, is a database that stores records of births in California for tracks of birth certificates. Putting her full official name of Rachel Meghan Markle, you can see that the official record shows.
To them, it looked like Harry was left to deal with everything on his own, facing all the pressure while Meghan stayed in the background. And that contrast kept fueling the conversation. For a couple known for presenting a strong, united image, this moment felt different. One side was highly visible and under pressure, while the other remained completely absent. And that shift left a lot of people asking the same question. What is really going on here? But this time, things felt different. Harry appeared to be handling everything on his own, while Meghan's absence left people guessing even more. Royal commentators quickly started weighing in. Some described her silence as strategic, while others saw it as distant. But everyone agreed on one thing: it was impossible to ignore. When someone so visible suddenly steps back, people are going to talk. And the longer that silence continued, the louder the speculation became. Was she stepping back on purpose, waiting for things to calm down? Or was there a disagreement behind the scenes about how to respond? No one had clear answers. And that uncertainty only made everything feel more intense. Even observers close to the situation began noticing a shift. The usual coordination and teamwork people expected just didn't seem as visible this time. It felt like something had changed, and that caught attention fast. They had built their public image on being fully aligned, always moving together, always presenting a united front. But now, that image didn't feel as solid.
Fewer titles mean there is less of a chance for a degenerate like Prince Andrew, now called Andrew Mountbatten Windsor, to slip through. Which means, as I previously reported, Harry and Meghan will lose their titles, as well as Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie. Even if Harry and Meghan right now are earning their own money, that well is drying up. You've got to take the ability for them to damage the royal family in the future away, and you've got to do that now. You've got to do it swiftly.
With everything unfolding at once, the contrast between Harry's visibility and Meghan's silence made the situation feel even bigger. Harry was out there, clearly under pressure, while Meghan remained completely quiet. And no matter how you look at it, that contrast raised a lot of questions. At the same time, Angela Levin's approach was getting just as much attention, and maybe even more. She didn't come in loud or overly dramatic. She stayed calm, focused, and very deliberate in how she spoke. And somehow that made everything hit even harder. Because when someone is shouting or making bold claims, it's easy for people to tune it out. But when someone speaks calmly, lays things out step by step, and asks direct questions, it lands differently. It makes people stop and really think. Levin's style was simple but extremely effective. She pointed to what was already public, highlighted what seemed missing, and let viewers form their own conclusions. No exaggerated delivery, no over-the-top reactions, just observations that got people talking. And that approach made it harder for critics to push back. Instead of telling people what to believe, she gave them pieces to look at themselves. And that kept the conversation going even stronger. Angela Levin didn't just appear once and disappear either. She kept coming back. Each time, she stayed steady, consistent, and calm, adding small details while keeping the same measured tone. No drama, no raised voice, just the same questions, delivered the same way. And that consistency started building momentum. Now here's where things really shifted. Every time Harry tried to push back or shut the conversation down, it seemed to bring even more attention to it. His reactions became part of the story itself. What could have faded quickly turned into something ongoing, something people kept coming back to. Each visible sign of frustration made people even more curious about what Levin had been pointing out from the beginning, and that contrast became impossible to ignore. On one side, Levin appeared completely unbothered, calmly repeating her points. On the other side, reports described Harry as under pressure, reacting strongly as everything unfolded. Social media picked up on that difference instantly. Comparisons spread everywhere, highlighting calm versus reaction, and people couldn't stop talking about it. Levin's steady approach made her seem more credible to many viewers, while Harry's handling of the situation drew increasing scrutiny. Because when one person stays calm and the other seems overwhelmed, people naturally begin forming their own opinions. That contrast became a huge part of the story. Every time Angela Levin appeared, clips spread fast. Millions of views, constant shares, and people tuning in just to see if she would add more. It created a cycle where attention kept growing instead of fading away. And what made it stand out even more was how simple her approach remained. She didn't rely on dramatic delivery or bold claims. She focused on what was already public and pointed out what seemed unclear. Letting people connect the dots themselves made it even more powerful. Meanwhile, the response coming from Harry appeared to move in the opposite direction. The more visible the frustration seemed, the more the conversation grew, and the bigger the story became. By that point, it wasn't just about the original topic anymore, it was about perception. Levin came across as steady and composed, while Harry's reaction raised even more questions. And then things went even further. What started as one TV segment quickly turned into a global media storm. Coverage spread everywhere, and the spotlight only got bigger. American morning shows jumped in fast, dedicating full segments to breaking everything down. Clips of Angela Levin were replayed again and again, with hosts analyzing her words and discussing every reported detail surrounding Harry's response. This wasn't just casual entertainment anymore. It had turned into major headline coverage. In the UK, tabloids pushed the story everywhere, with bold headlines and nonstop updates that kept the topic front and center. The shift in public perception felt dramatic. One moment, Harry was seen in a certain light, and the next, he was at the center of global conversations filled with debate and strong opinions. Late-night shows added even more attention. Comedians built entire segments around the situation, highlighting the contrast between Levin's calm delivery and the intensity of the reactions being discussed. And online, it exploded even further. Reaction videos, breakdowns, discussion threads. People couldn't stop talking about it. Creators reenacted moments, analyzed timelines, and shared clips that quickly reached massive audiences. What started as one broadcast had turned into a viral moment that just kept growing. Those clips spread fast, paired with shocked reactions, pulling in millions of views. And suddenly, it became a non-stop content cycle that wouldn't slow down. Even people who never followed royal news were getting pulled in. Viewers who didn't usually care about titles or traditions were now watching every update, trying to understand what was happening. It had fully crossed into mainstream attention, comment sections filled with people changing their opinions, some saying they used to support Harry, but were now questioning his response. Others wondered why things weren't being addressed more directly, and instead of slowing down, the momentum kept building. Every reported move turned into more content, more discussion, more reactions that kept the story alive. The comparisons between Levin and Harry were everywhere. Side-by-side clips, breakdowns, debates, all repeating the same contrast. And people couldn't stop analyzing it. TV panels, online creators, global audiences, everyone joined in. This had become one of those stories that just wouldn't fade. It had everything: mystery, strong reactions, and unanswered questions. And that combination kept people watching and talking nonstop. At this point, Harry had become the center of attention online, and not in a positive way. Every news cycle brought new coverage, new reactions, and more analysis that kept everything going. What started as a single TV appearance had turned into a global moment. It was everywhere: television, social media, and even major outlets that don't usually cover this kind of topic. The situation had grown far beyond a simple media discussion. And then, things took an even more serious turn. Angela Levin shifted the conversation again, bringing attention to how these unanswered questions and missing details could relate to Archie and Lilibet's position within the royal structure. That changed everything. Now it wasn't just about public curiosity anymore. It touched on long-standing traditions and how information around royal family members is typically handled. Because when it comes to royal lineage, clarity has always been important. Public records, established processes, and structured communication have always played a major role. And once that angle entered the conversation, it raised even more questions than before. And when something feels different, people notice fast. And once that angle entered the conversation, everything intensified even more. What started as simple questions suddenly felt like it could have much bigger implications than anyone expected. Because at the end of the day, one thing really stands out. Angela Levin didn't come in loud. She didn't try to overwhelm the moment. She stayed calm, steady, and just asked questions. And somehow that alone was enough to shake everything up in a major way. No dramatic delivery, no over-the-top reactions, just simple observations that made people stop and think. And now, it's over to you. Do you think Angela Levin was just pointing out what was already visible? Or did she take things a step too far this time? Why do you think her calm approach hit so much harder than anything else people have seen? Before, do you believe the questions she raised deserved clear answers? Or is this situation being pushed way beyond what it really is? And most importantly, why do you think this moment sparked such a massive reaction across the world? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and share this with someone who needs to see it. See you in the next one.